What were some of the feeding problems, and how were some of these problems corrected?
Well, first of all, the tax, the VAT properly structured is a VAT on consumption.
Yes.
As it stands now, the VAT exists on paper. It's just a set of projections in some case. But you don't know what your value of consumption in the country is. Very often, the value of consumption, how much people are spending on goods and services, is underestimated. And therefore, one of the teeth and problems that you have in the implementation of value-added tax is that the tax may bring more revenue than you anticipated. To address that issue in Barbados, I told the country I'm going to introduce the VAT. It is only a set of numbers on paper. I will know within 9 months whether the tax will accomplish its purposes or not. I will review it in 9 months. And if it needs to be fixed, I will fix it. Secondly, the VAT brings into the tax net people and entities that were not in the tax net. And what we did in Barbados, and one of the things that I would imagine that your government will have to deal with, is recognize that if you don't manage the implementation well, the VAT could hurt people who are poor. In Barbados, what I did is, we have income tax in Barbados, but we have an income tax threshold. There's a level below which you don't pay income tax. We introduced a reverse tax credit. If you're not paying income tax, but you're paying VAT, and you're below the level at which you don't pay income tax, we give you a tax refund nonetheless.
In other words, you have VAT and also income tax.
Yes, we do. I'm going to come to that. But to make sure that the VAT did not hurt the poor, we gave back the poor, people below a certain income level, our tax refund, even though they were not paying income tax. We also used the excess revenue to start benefiting poor people. And you have to get to the stage where you target the poor. We, for example, created a poverty eradication fund that we maintain, and we put part of the VAT proceeds in it to make sure that the poor people benefited from the fact that the country had a VAT. And we used the opportunity of a better revenue position from the VAT to create the Urban and Rural Development Commissions in Barbados, to be able to do things in urban and rural Barbados to address poverty at the community level. So the point I'm making is this, that a VAT has its great potential benefits, but left unattended and with nothing more, because it brings so many people into the net because of the tax on consumption. It has to be followed by a series of measures to really take this thing out of it. But you first of all have to establish the base, and then you take this thing out of it. And that's what we did in Barbados. And our economy prospered subsequent to the value-added tax. And I may say, I believe it has to be a form of like walking on water to be able to run a country's affairs and have neither a VAT nor income tax. I don't know how you do it. And perhaps you may want to be able to explain to the world how a country like St. Kitts can afford to run its affairs, have a lot of social programs without having that assured form of revenue.
I was going to ask you, what was the impact on the economy in the first year and then subsequently 5 years after?
The VAT brought in more revenue than we anticipated because we were broadening the base. What I did, I went back within 9 months and I changed the base of the VAT. The economy continued to grow. And in fact, the only years in which our economy did not grow in the 14 years I was Prime Minister is when we were affected by 9/11. So that now our experience proved that the VAT does not destroy economic growth. What it in fact did is that we were able then to zero rate exports, we were able to zero rate agricultural inputs and output. We were able to have a special rate for tourism. And the VAT was a tremendous fillip to the fortunes of those economies. So the post-Barbados experience in relation to the VAT, I think I can capture it by saying that it created the basis for sustained growth without fiscal difficulties. It allowed us to be able to introduce programs to aggressively mount and sustain policies to eradicate poverty. And we did that by creating a basis for sustainable growth in the country. So it accomplished those purposes.
What was the reaction of the business sector to the implementation, post and after?
Well, one of the leading businessmen in Barbados put out an ad in advance of the VAT, telling the people, come and spend quickly because Hurricane VAT is about to hit the country. You see, there's a period in which the old consumption tax and the VAT coexist.
Yes.
And you have that little short period where there might be a spike in prices. And there were certain businessmen who sought to take advantage of it. They heard from me. I used very ripe and colorful and muscular language to dissuade them because they knew it was only a temporary situation. Yes, you will have a small spike in prices because the VAT will coexist for a short period with your consumption tax, but that passes. And then the businesses that were complaining will benefit from having to sell their products at a lower rate of tax than the old consumption tax. Now, they complain in advance of the tax, but I think they forgot to say thank you when the VAT at 15% replaced, in our case, a consumption tax of 22%.
Similar to our case.
I'm not going to comment on the same case.
So what advice would you have given to your people in Barbados?
Well, my cabinet was, of course, worried. We were having to introduce a tax close to an election. I tell them, in everything you do, you have to let the results work for you. And if you're doing the right thing for the right reasons, you have to let the results work for you.
You won 2 elections after?
Yes, I did. And the point I'm making is that the VAT is absolutely necessary because you're living in a country. But forget the income tax thing because I don't know how you manage to run a country without income tax. And in fact, a part of the issue that I'm dealing with in St. Kitts, why do you have such a high ratio of debt to GDP? Because you don't have a tax base to generate the revenues to do things that the country wants done. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die.
Our income tax was abolished in 1990.
Well, I am not going to get into that either, but all I'm really saying is that I think it is a minor miracle for a country to believe that you can have a well-developed set of social services, but you have no tax on income and no tax on consumption. I wouldn't know how to run a country in that way. And that people have to understand that if you want to have social benefits, they have to be paid for. And there's a responsible way. The thing is, does it stand the test of reasonableness? And public policy always have, in my view, to stand that test. It's necessary to be done. Are we doing it for reasonable reasons in a reasonable way? And that is really what the debate should be about. I think it stands. I supported the VAT in opposition when I was in opposition in Barbados because I thought it stood the test of reasonableness, but it was absolutely necessary. We're living in a country, a set of countries, where year by year, period by period, governments will have to remove import duties. What are you going to replace them with? And that is the basic question.
Prime Minister, thank you very much for your words of wisdom.
Thank you kindly.
All the best to you.
Same to you.
Thank you.